Hey y'all, my name is Shiva, and I want to welcome you to this episode of the Soul Tapes podcast. I believe that we are souls in a human body experiencing this thing we call life. This podcast is a safe space to dive into the experiences that we have in this lifetime, from the trifling to the enlightening and everything in between. If something in your soul resonates with that, sit back and relax while I get into today's topic. Today we're going to get into adjusting to new beginnings. I want to explore the discomfort that comes with new beginnings because, let's be real, shedding the old version of yourself that was attached to an old job, place, relationship, friendship has a grieving process, and sometimes it's very necessary. So you might be asking, what do I mean by new beginnings? I think of new beginnings as any new aspect of your life, whether that be a new job, a new pet, a new child, a new relationship, a new house, even a new hair color. Just something that's new about your life and is going to change you in some way, small or big. I kind of see new beginnings as God or the universe or your ancestors or Jesus, whatever spiritual or religious belief you may have. I believe that that is your higher self's way of opening a new door for you. And unfortunately, with new doors come closed doors. And that might not sound that bad. There are a lot of doors that we may want to close when we are entering a new beginning. But a lot of times we're not mentally prepared for what that means for the old version of ourselves that was in those closed doors. And this is not the case for everything, but for some new beginnings, I feel like when you're closing the door on an old opportunity or an old phase of your life, you are also closing the door on an old version of yourself that was necessary for you to get through whatever that old opportunity or old experience was. So I'll give you guys an example. Since I was like 4 years old, I really wanted to be a doctor. It evolved from baby doctor to neonatal doctor to eventually OBGYN. So I had that dream my entire adolescent into my adulthood career. And at some point I realized that that wasn't working for me anymore. Medicine didn't light a fire in me the way that it used to. And so when I began to pivot, I realized that I was actually a lot more interested in mental health, especially in Black communities. So now I'm pursuing a career to become a therapist. And I'm really, really happy about it. But there was a big transition phase where I was so uncomfortable with leaving this old dream in the past to pursue something that I knew was actually meant for me and aligned with the person that I am becoming and not the person that I was. And when I tell you I was scared, I was scared. I studied for the MCAT, did terrible on it like 3 times, and still, even though I knew I did not enjoy medicine anymore, I still kept trying. I kept making study plans, and for a really long time I felt bad about myself because I didn't feel like I compared to this old version of myself I thought I wanted to be, instead of just pivoting and becoming comfortable with the idea that there's another version of me waiting for me to be ready for it. I don't know if that makes sense. But yeah, I just needed to be ready to become this new version of myself. But it was very, very, very uncomfortable. So that discomfort that I was experiencing was me not being ready to let go of the old version of myself that I had imagined. I imagined myself being this doctor and having my own practice and all of this stuff. And that was beautiful, right? But it no longer served me. So when it was time to finally let it go, it almost felt like I was losing a piece of myself or like losing an old friend. And it really did require a grieving process. I was no longer going to be Shiva the doctor. I was no longer going to be a Black doctor. I now had to pivot and realize, like, okay, I'm going to be Shiva the therapist. I'm going to be a Black therapist. And that was beautiful, but I really did have to let go of this old version of myself and grieve her. So, all in all, I love new beginnings, and I love that you guys have so many new beginnings coming. I don't know who all is listening. Hey, thank you so much for listening. But just in my friends, like when I scroll down my timeline and like in those parasocial relationships I have with people on the internet, so many people are doing so many great things. It is grad season, it's new apartment season, new house, people popping out with a new boo. I am so happy for everybody. I love those new beginnings. But again, I'm only seeing it on social media, right? You guys are showing me the happiest versions of yourself, which is lovely. But I know personally, and maybe it's just me, you know what I mean? I'm not going to say that my experience is universal. But with all of those new beginnings that you are now publicly celebrating with everybody, there was a lot of work that went into getting there, getting to the point where it was something that you could show to others. There was a transition process. And so in this episode, that's what I really want to get into. The discomfort and adjustment that comes with new beginnings. I think that starting something new requires a lot of bravery. It requires you to detach from the old versions of yourself, detach from the old visions of what life was going to look like for you, even if it was just in a very, very small way. It requires you to really pivot. And I think that detachment and getting comfortable with detachment is the most important part of being able to fully celebrate, appreciate, and accept the new beginnings that are coming for you in life. So what I mean by detachment is detaching from outcomes. So if you were in a long relationship, so like let's say you were with somebody for 10 years, which sounds like a long time. I don't want to downplay that at all. But if you were in a long relationship and you realize that this relationship is no longer working out, even though it has been 10 years and you've put a lot of time into it, there comes a certain point where you are now realizing that everything you imagined is no longer going to happen anymore. And it requires you to learn the art of detachment. And it is not easy. Do not get me wrong. That's why I call detachment an art. I think a lot of people do, but I genuinely think it's an art, because detaching from an outcome is so ridiculously hard. When you enter a relationship, you enter a job, you enter a friendship, whatever the case may be, you are oftentimes entering that with an idea of what it is going to lead you to or what it's going to look like. You enter a relationship, you've been in it for 10 years, you think it's going to end in marriage and living happily ever after. You get a new job, you think you're going to like it there, make great money, maybe stay there until you retire, whatever the case may be. The problem with having those expectations is that when they don't happen, it can be really, really hard. Not only have you had this idea in your mind of where this opportunity was going to lead you to, but you also had an idea in your mind of who you were going to be when this opportunity led you there. The art of detachment says, no. Let go of any ideas of what this is going to be and your vibe, twins, your vibe. Because you don't know if that's what God's plan was for you. So enjoy it while it's here. Enjoy the opportunities as they come, but do not become attached to the outcome, because this is not the be all end all. You don't know what else is in store. You don't know where your time here is going to lead you. You might have thought this relationship was going to lead you to point A, B, and C, and it actually led you to Z. If you detach from the outcome, you can enjoy your experiences as they are happening instead of being stuck in the future and being upset when that future does not come to pass. We get it. The art of detachment, blah, 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 blah. How do we do it, right? Because everybody has expectations. We all have expectations of where this situation, opportunity, relationship is going to lead us. I think that having expectations are healthy, so that's not the message I'm trying to send. But I do think that learning to pivot when you realize that those expectations are no longer serving you is really, really important. And I think the two most important ways to learn to pivot and detach from the outcome of things is learning how to grieve and learning the art of gratitude, or the practice of gratitude, I should say. So first I want to get into learning how to grieve. And when I say grieve, I mean grieving the old version of yourself, or the old version of the opportunity or relationship that you initially expected and wanted. So you had a relationship. I'm just going to use this because I think it's applicable to a lot of people. You had a relationship and you were in it and you thought this person was finna be your boo forever. Y'all thought y'all was locked in tight. You know what I mean? You know what come next. You thought y'all was going nowhere. But the situation didn't end up like that. Something happened and you guys are no longer in a relationship, or are moving towards not being in a relationship. There's a point where you built up an idea of who this person was to you, and who this person was going to be to you in the future. And you built up an idea of who you were in this relationship and where this relationship was going to take you. So when that relationship ends, there's a sort of grieving process, right? The version of the person you loved does not exist anymore. In a way, that version of them has died. The version of you who was with them does not exist anymore. That version of you has died. And so that's what I mean by grieving process. I think died is a very harsh word to use, but you guys know what I'm trying to say. That version of you does not exist in this reality anymore. That version of them does not exist in this reality anymore. And so I think that it's only fair and healthy to grieve the fact that that is no longer there. Because you're going to spend nights in your room crying like, oh, how could they do me like this? I just can't believe I could have never seen this coming. They had so much potential, da 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 da, right? And you're also going to grieve, oh, I don't feel as happy and I don't feel as loving and affectionate, right? Those parts of you are not going to exist in this reality anymore. And so grieving that part of you, I think, is a really, really important part of the healing process. And I think it's a necessary part of the healing process in order to pivot and detach from old outcomes. Instead of just being like, okay, well, it's on to the next person, next job, next da-da-da, as you should. But instead of just approaching it like that, also mentally being like, wow, I do miss that, or I do miss them. Holding the space for yourself to really grieve and accept that that is no longer your reality is really important, because you're going to push past it and those same problems are just going to keep showing up. You know, if you don't take the time to feel your feelings, address how the situation made you feel, address the parts of you that are no longer here. I think that's just really important. I think it's even more important to remember that your story can change. You are literally the one writing it. This is your life, baby. This is your world. We are just living in it. So that's okay. That relationship ended. Okay, it's summer. It's time to go outside. But feel your feelings first. You know what I mean? Feel how you feel and grieve those parts of you. And I think it's also about learning to accept yourself at every stage. You are not worth any less just because a part of you does not exist in this reality anymore, because that relationship is gone. You are still you, the way you were before you came into the relationship. You're just a new version of you. Learn that new version of you. Get comfortable with it. Learn what this new version of you likes and doesn't like. You know, you leave every opportunity, every closed door. If you're doing the proper reflection, you're going to understand what you learned about yourself through that. If you left a job and you realize, you know what, I really like the mental health aspect, or I really liked interacting with these types of people at my job, but I didn't like how this boss treated me or this happened. You know, do the same thing to every closed door. Reflect on what worked for you and what didn't. And then you can integrate those things that did work for you into this new version of yourself that you're becoming. It doesn't have to be a completely sad thing. You know, the grieving process for a lot of different things is very, very complex, but it doesn't have to be completely sad. You lost something and you're gaining something. And this is not going to happen overnight. You know, it's a whole process. There are stages. I personally can really, really feel when I'm going through a new growing phase, because I start having growing pains in my life. Stuff starts to feel like it's not serving me anymore. I start to feel bored or complacent or extra irritated, and I know okay, something new is on the horizon for me. I gotta make something shake. This old version of me, who I am right now, is not working. I really feel uncomfortable in those transitionary periods, when you really hate this old job and you are so ready to find a new one, but you're still at the old job and you're looking for new jobs. You're on Indeed on the clock and you're on LinkedIn on the clock looking for new jobs. That's an uncomfortable period. You know, there's an old version of you and you're ready to shed that old version, but there's a new version of you that you are not quite that person yet. And so just getting comfortable with those uncomfortable periods. I know it sounds weird and contradictory, but you do have to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. I think to really be comfortable with becoming your best self, because that's an ongoing journey. So boom, just to wrap it up, right? I think you need to give yourself the time and the space to really grieve this old version of yourself and old ideas of what should have been or what could have been or what would have been. Grieve those things, boo. It's okay. And it's okay to cry about it too. You know, I've been upset behind a job, behind a man, behind a parent, behind so many things, because I had an idea of what it should be. And I'm still working on that. I am not perfect. Nothing I say on here is 100%. You know what I mean? I'm not perfect. There are definitely some days where I really am irritated by the fact that this didn't turn out how I wanted it to. But when I have that irritation, I try to take the time and practice some gratitude. And that's the next thing I want to get into. I could and probably will do an episode just on gratitude at some point in the future. But gratitude is genuinely one of the best things you can practice, I believe. Outside of meditation and going to the gym and stuff, gratitude will help you hold your head high when you are in your lowest spaces. And what I mean by gratitude is being grateful for what you have in the moment and in the present. So if you are in a situation where you have a job, you got a roof over your head, you can afford to feed yourself, but XYZ is not going right, and it's not always easy. Please listen, I am not a perfect person, but trying to practice gratitude, okay, thank you, universe, for making sure that I had gas to put in my car so I could make it to work today. Thank you. I'm so grateful I have this. I'm grateful I have that. Instead of always acknowledging the deficits in your life, trying to acknowledge the things that are going right, because everything cannot be going wrong at the same time. Life just does not work like that. And don't get me wrong, sometimes it feels like it. Sometimes it definitely feels like life is trying to suplex me repeatedly. Do not get me wrong. But when life is trying to suplex me repeatedly, they can't suplex everything, okay? There's still something going right in my life. At the end of the day, I have a good job. I get paid on time. I got people in my circle who support me if I don't get paid on time. And I got people in my circle who are going to be here no matter what. I've got good food I can go eat. I've got options to introduce some goodness into my life when things seem to be going bad. Also, excuse my voice because it is a little bit hoarse today. But yeah, I think gratitude is going to get you into a lot of places that negativity just cannot take you. Just realistically, not that I practice like a toxic positivity. I don't think that every situation warrants positivity. Some situations do be shitty, and I think that's real. Like, I think you should acknowledge that. I'm not going to look at somebody who is going through the hardest battle in their life and be like, you just need to be grateful. No, because then I look goofy. But what I am going to say is, what's in your control right now? What can you control? And for those things you can't control, try to be grateful. Try. Because everything is not going to be all good all the time, and everything is not going to be all bad all the time. All of the hardest things you've been through at this point, if you are listening, all of the hardest things that you have been through at this point in your life, you have made it through. I'm sure there is some shit, boy. I'm sure there is some stuff you've been through that you just knew you weren't going to make it through. Some battles that you had to go through in silence. But here you are today. So practicing gratitude while you are at your lowest of lows can help you understand that light at the end of the tunnel is a lot closer than you think. And the ways that I practice gratitude in my daily life is journaling. On this podcast, you guys are going to hear me talk a lot about journaling and recommending it to help you get through these things, because for one, you can't talk to everybody about everything. It's beautiful when you do have people you can talk to everything about. I have a lot of people in my life that I can talk about everything to. But sometimes it's nice to run it by yourself first. Journal it out, talk about it to somebody where it's not going to get out to anybody else. Talk about it to yourself. Get those thoughts out, get them organized. So I just got on my little soapbox about journaling. But I want to talk about gratitude journaling. Gratitude journaling, the way that I do it, and I'm sure that there's plenty of ways that you can do it. Please do your research. But I like to do it at the top of the morning when nothing has ruined my day yet, And I like to go and do 10 things at least that I am grateful for. And a lot of times the list looks the same every day, but it does keep it in perspective. Like, these are things that are consistently and constantly going right for me. So I'll give you guys examples. I might say something like, I am grateful for my support system. I am grateful for my boyfriend. I am grateful for my friends. I am grateful for my family. I am grateful for the good food that I get to eat every day. I am grateful for a job that pays my bills and allows me to enjoy leisure. I am grateful for my line sisters. Things like that, just, and they don't have to be long, drawn out things. Simple sentences. I am grateful for the popsicle I ate yesterday because it was hot and I needed it. Just trying to find gratitude in every little thing, because life do be hard, life be lifing, but life is not all bad all the time, and I think it's important to recognize that. I think another important way to practice gratitude consistently is expressing it. in the moment. So when I'm with my friends and we're having a really good day, like, you know, those days where you don't want them to end and you realize that life is great and you never should have been stressing about anything anyway. In those moments, I am always going to be the friend that makes it mushy. I'm always going to be like, I love you guys so much. You guys just don't know. I'm so grateful to have people like you in my life. You know, I'm that friend. But I think that that's important to like tell the people that are around me that I'm grateful. And it's also important for me to point that out. If I'm having a bad week next week, I can always think back to like, whew, but at least I have good friends, you know, people who can make me feel like that whenever I need them to, you know. So I think that pointing out gratitude as you're experiencing it is really important too. I'm happy for this thing right now. The more you practice it, I will say, the better that you get at it. You know, it's a lot harder to get rid of negative emotions because they come up a lot more often. I mean, we see negative stuff on TV, on social media. Most things that people talk about are negative things. People are not usually chatting about the most positive things going on in the world. So the more that you practice it, the less that the negative things going on in your life and in the world around you are going to impact how you feel about your life. So just wrapping it up, I definitely think that practicing gratitude and allowing yourself to grieve old versions of yourself or old versions of what your expectations were for a situation is really healthy and really important. New beginnings are naturally going to come with some discomfort. You know, you are becoming a new version of yourself, whether it be in a really small way or in a really big way. There's a new version of you that's emerging out of this closed door or this closed opportunity, right? And so you deserve to set yourself up to accept that new opportunity without sabotaging it just because you are so attached to this old outcome. And I didn't really get into self-sabotage, but that's really, really important for this message. Please do not hold yourself back trying to cling to what you thought life was supposed to be just because you're scared. There is nothing that gets done in this world that's monumental that is not a little uncomfortable, okay? And I think your life is really important, and I hope you think your life is really important. And because your life is really important, that means that, baby, you're going to go through some uncomfortable things to get to where you want to be. And when I say uncomfortable, I don't mean that disrespects your boundaries or something like that. No negative thing. New beginnings should be good for you, you know. So try your best to embrace them. You deserve these new opportunities. You deserve these new beginnings. They are going to come with new challenges, for sure. New challenges you have not seen before. But as you are practicing gratitude and you're able to see the good things in those challenges and the good things in what's become easier for you in life, you will realize that good beginnings are not that bad. They are a little uncomfortable. They can be very uncomfortable. Let me change my stance on that. They can be very uncomfortable. But that does not mean that something greater is not coming for you. 9 out of 10 times, there is something greater that's coming for you. And sometimes I think that God and my ancestors have a vision for me that I just cannot visualize quite yet. And so as I'm learning to detach from outcomes and I'm learning to practice gratitude, I'm able to go with the flow a lot better. You know, sometimes I be like, all right, now y'all, this don't make no sense. You know what I mean? I'm not quite sure where you're supposed to be taking me. But when I get there, I'm like, okay. I see what you're trying to do. Thank you. I am grateful. So if I can leave you with nothing else today, I just want you to know that your life has value. There are a lot of really great things coming to you. All you have to do is let them in. Okay, and last thing is the song for this episode, which is I Gotta Find Peace of Mind by Lauryn Hill. I love that song, y'all. It can bring me to tears even when I'm having a great day. But when I'm having a bad day and I'm in a tough spot and I know that there's some discomfort and that something's got to shake and, and where I'm at right now is not where I can continue to be, I listen to this song. There's something so spiritual. You can tell that Lauryn Hill was going through an extremely spiritual process and that there was a new beginning on the horizon for her, and she was stuck between who she was and who she's going to be. So please listen to that song. I hope you guys have a wonderful day or night or whatever. I love you so much. Please take care of yourself, okay? And be safe outside. It's getting hot and people starting to act crazy. So be safe, please. Bye.